start feeling nostalgic around the holidays? Me too, and I've got some decor ideas to go along with that. Hi, my name is Leslie, and welcome to Happy Tuesday, where we do crafts and DIY and home decor and more. I've got 5 of the most adorable, and we'll call them timeless, vintage-ish, if you were, Christmas decor ideas that you are just going to fall in love with. Now, don't forget to stick around until the very end, and I'll have a hint on one of next week's projects. So grab your favorite Christmassy beverage, and let's get crafting! Here's a quick sneak peek into all 5 of today's projects. I am so excited to share these with you guys. That brings us to project number 1. Check her out. Isn't she adorable? So first we're going to start with a large bead and a small terracotta pot. And I'm going to paint my bead a flesh color and my terracotta pot a Christmas red. The other thing that you're going to need is some Christmas fabric, and this is the one I referred to last week. We're also going to need a Christmas ribbon. So I chose this sparkly ribbon that had all the same colors as my fabric that I thought would coordinate, and we're going to put this around the bottom of our terracotta pot all the way around. Now the ribbon was a little bit longer than the spot there at the end of the terracotta pot, so I'm going to take the rest and glue it inside. That way we've got a flat base for her to sit on, but I didn't want to have to cut the ribbon. So there you go. Once we've gotten that done, then we are going to go ahead and take our fabric, and I want to cut out a circle. So I grabbed a plastic lid. I think this came from an oatmeal container, and used that as my template there to cut out my fabric. This is going to be her little hat. And once we've got the circle cut out, then we're going to take some more of that ribbon and we are going to pleat it all the way around. Now, in hindsight, and I don't show you that I had to take all this ribbon off, but in hindsight, I would have made that circle a little bit smaller. And that way, you know, the ribbon would have been in the right place. But luckily with hot glue, I could take my heat tool and heat it up and then just remove it from my fabric and set it in a little bit closer. So once that bead is dry, then I'm going to go ahead and use some hot glue and glue that on. And then I'm going to take this dowel and I am going to make her 2 arms. Got them a little bit long the first time, so we're going to trim them down and make sure they're both the same size. Then I'm going to take some more of that fabric and I am going to wrap it around these little dowel pieces to give her sleeves. Now I want this to be a little bit longer than the dowel pieces because the extra fabric is what we're going to use to glue it to her body. Now, while I am gluing those on, I want to thank today's host. We are again part of a playlist, even though this is my normal day. And this is 12 Days of Christmas, number 7, Vintage. Our hosts of today's playlist are Brenda with Rustic and Lace DIY and Jackie with Crafting in Mimi's World. Make sure that you check out the playlist and give those ladies some love. And I have also linked Jackie and Brenda's channels down below. So if you don't already know them, they are amazing crafters and you will just love their channels. All right, so now we are going to place a little bit of hot glue inside that extra fabric and flatten it out. That makes it easy to glue to her body, and we're going to have one sticking straight out and one coming down, and I will actually attach that to her body so it's not flinging around. What you missed while I was chatting was me just painting tiny little beads to act as hands, the same flesh color I made her head. Now we're going to take that ribbon again and make a tiny little bow for the front of her dress. And then we're going to start working on the sign. So I'm going to grab my miter shears and cut it down. And then we're just using, I want to say it was a little piece from some pumpkin pick or something. You know, I keep all my little scrap wood pieces because I will use those. And we're going to give those a nice coat of white chalk paint and glue them together. And then I'm just going to hand write on here, Merry Christmas. And using my markers, I'm also going to draw a little bit of stitching around the outside edge and some holly up in the corners with a little berry. So once we've gotten that done, we will glue that to her hand, and then I'm gonna just draw her face on. This is a little bit different face than what I normally do, so I wanted to get it right. So I'm gonna use a pencil first and then come back in with the markers and fill it in. And for full disclosure, again, I had to kind of erase off part of what I drew on her face. I didn't like her eyelashes. They started out okay, and then I went back in with the thicker paint marker, and I thought it got out of control a little bit. So I sanded them off. I redid the face color and then drew them back on. Now we are going to use a little bit of embroidery floss and a needle, and we are going to just do a back and forth stitch to create her little bonnet part. And where that back and forth stitch ends is where I ended up moving my ribbon to. So if you will see, the hat just got a little bit too big. All right, now I've got one of these little faux wreaths I got on clearance at Hobby Lobby, and I'm taking some of those tiny little jewels that are on a sticker pack from Dollar Tree, and I picked out some red ones and stuck those onto my wreath. Lastly, I am putting her on some hair. Now, I did purchase this, and if you would like some Claus white hair, I will have that linked below. But I wanted her to look kind of like Mrs. Claus, and the brown fake hair that I had just didn't give me that look. Now, I left the needle attached to the thread until I got her hair on, so that I could personalize the size of that hat to her head, and then I trimmed it off and settled her hair, glued her hat onto her head, and here she is. I just think she's so cute. I call her Mrs. Claus. My husband says she looks like a suffragette. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I just wanted to pop in here real quick and say thank you. I appreciate that we get to spend time together today. If you're not already a subscriber, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button and clicking the bell below. Then you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. You'll help my channel grow, and it's free to you. Give today's video a big old thumbs up, share it with your friends, comment down below, and let's get back to crafting. All right, let's get on to project number 2 of our vintage collection. I am going to take this little shadow box. I got this at Michael's. It came out of their Maker's collection. And when I bought it, I want to say it was probably on some type of clearance, because I don't remember paying more than 50 cents for it. But I'm going to take all the hardware off the back side so that it's flat, and then I am going to take my antique wax and give it all a nice good coat inside and out. And you'll notice up at the top, it's kind of like a little postcardy picture. I did get a pack of what they call vintage pictures. It's got that vintagey look to it from Temu. And I chose one out of that. Now, while the antique wax was still wet, I took that picture and set it up there and marked it where you can see, so that I knew exactly where it was going to fit. And because it was still wet, you know, we got some antique wax that gave us our boundary lines. And then we are going to cut out the outside piece, and that's going to go up on the outside, obviously, kind of as a frame, and then the other piece is going to go on the inside. So it kind of gives us the depth of that shadow box with the picture without having to make all the different layers. But how we're going to achieve all those different layers is by using some different little florals and attaching them onto our tree. But this was a little bit big on the side, and so I did take my handy dandy little nail file there and sanded off the outside edges, and then took my wet antique wax leftover baby wipe and just rubbed it on there, and that took care of all my edges, and also, you know, kind of brought all of it together. And then we're going to glue this tree onto the inside. Now I'm going to take just some random florals that look like they kind of matched with the tree, and we're going to start adding them in random different places all along the tree. And I think that kind of, you know, makes it feel less papery and more like a photo. And I just love the way that look is achieved, and it just kind of brings the whole picture to life, I think. Makes it a little bit, obviously, a little bit more three-dimensional. So I've just got some florals that I bought at Dollar Tree, and we're going to separate those out. So I've got the little berries down in the bottom, and then we're going to use some of those berries and some other berries I had as little ornaments that'll fit on the inside of our tree. And then I don't know if you can see there, but on the top and in a couple of places on the tree, it looks like there's a little bit of oh gosh, I had the word and now it's gone. A little poinsettia, there we go, a little bit of poinsettia. Now I did use some other little beads for the top of the tree, and you'll see it later, but I took those off after I'd already glued them on, and it kind of ripped some of the paper, and I will go back in and repair that with a little bit of antique wax and a little bit of paint. But now you can see where I ripped it off. But we're going to go up there with that little poinsettia flower from this other pick that I had from Dollar Tree. And then we're going to put one more on the tree to go along. And then it's just a matter of gluing all the baubles down and getting them in place. Then I grabbed a little bit of greenery that had a little bit of snow on it. I felt like that achieved a little snowy bottom on the ground, and you know, you have some little tree pieces that brought the tree kind of in place. And then I found this deer, and he was in the little clearance section at Hobby Lobby. His little leg was broken, and so I glued him back together, but you can't even tell. And I thought he just added the perfect finish to my little vintage picture here. And I just love, love, love the way this turns out. It all feels so seamless and just so picturesque. And that will bring us to project number 3. I love this star. This is another one that's super easy and very inexpensive. So we're going to take 5 of the bamboo skewers from Dollar Tree. And we are going to trim those down to 6 inches each. And I'm going to use all 5 of those to make my star. The other thing that you'll notice in the corner is some paper wrapped wire, and I bought that on Amazon a long time ago. I do use it quite regularly, and it goes a long, long way. So I'll have that link below too. We're going to start putting our star together with our skewers. So we're going to glue the top 2 together like an A, and then glue in that third one. Then on the top of the star, we're going to glue in number 4. And then underneath the star, we're going to glue in the last one. So we're just going to put dabs of hot glue on the ends and then hold them, especially this last one, just a little bit so that hot glue sets and keeps our star together. Now, you don't have to worry about being together forever and ever, because we're going to come back in with this wire. We're going to glue it along that top edge, and then we're just going to start wrapping it around and around and around the star until we get it covered as much as coverage as you want. Now, I wanted it so that you couldn't hardly see those skewers inside, so I'm just going to keep wrapping, and I went around and around for a little bit, and then I started working on each individual star point and then started bringing it through the middle. Now, of course, this wire was not wanting to cooperate. It was wanting to get all tangled, but once I got that untangled, that tangle all untangled, there we go. It was starting to move a little bit quicker, and then as I was wrapping it around the center, then I just, had enough wire to just work it so that it wasn't getting tangled at all. Once we've gotten it all wrapped up in the way that you think it looks good, and the way, in this case, I thought it looked good, I made sure I got all the tips of those points wrapped up real well. Then we are going to snip it off and glue that last piece of wire down to another piece so that it's all in place. And we are going to take a fairy light, and I'll also have those linked below, the ones that I use. You can buy those on Amazon. I also like to buy them on Temu. You can get bunches of them way cheap on Temu. So if you have the time to wait, that's the cheaper way to go, I think, especially for fairy lights, because I just like to leave them on the projects instead of moving them from project to project. But I'm going to wrap those around until I get them all around, and then that other little piece, the little battery piece, will fit behind it. Then I'm going to grab one of those skewers that we trimmed off and stick it up inside our star. Then I grabbed a scrap piece of wood, and I'm going to first antique wax it. You can see it was painted yellow from something, and I just really like the rustic feel of it, so I left that alone. And then we're going to go back in with some white and just kind of dry brush that all over. Not I guess it's ivory, not white, sorry. Not a real thick coat, but not a thin coat either, because I didn't really like the yellow to show through. I just thought that it was a really cool rustic look. And then we'll go ahead and get a little bit on the top. No worries on the bottom. I'm going to take a little drill and drill a hole so that skewer fits into that wood block, and then we are going to put this all together. Keep an eye out later in the week. I believe it's on Saturday. I will be releasing another extra edition as part of the 12 Days of Christmas. I am super excited for that, so be sure and watch out. So I'm just going to pick the right little drill bit and use my handy dandy pink drill to put a little hole in the center of this block so that I can add in the skewer stick and finish this project out. Now, last year I made a wire, just regular old wire star. It was really cool with some cardboard that we ended up burning out. So if I can find that video, I'll have that linked below too. But I love the stars at Christmas. I just think they are so inspirational. So I love to recreate them. And that will bring us to project number 4. Now, this one is kind of a salute to my son-in-law's country. He is from Germany, and this is called a German putz house. It's called P-U-T-Z, and the pattern I found was free online, and I will link that below so that if you want to make this, you can print that pattern out. And then I wanted mine to be just a little bit bigger, and so I enlarged it to 1.25. Now I'm going to cut out all my pieces first, and I did leave with them what they are. And I am using this cardboard that was the back side of a desk calendar. But the cardboard that they make these in Germany with is actually cereal box cardboard. So if you have some cereal boxes, that's a perfect cardboard. I suppose you could make this with, some thicker cardstock or something along those lines. But it's not, something that you'll make with, real thick corrugated cardboard. It needs to be a thinner cardboard. Now, once I've gotten the pieces cut out, then they have these dotted lines, and those are for scoring. So if you have a scoring tool, great. I know there's something called a bone something, and Cricut has a scoring tool something. So if you know what those are, leave me a comment below. But I'm just going to use the end of this bamboo skewer stick. It worked perfect. And then, bend up my piece. So you're not going to cut those scored edges, you're just going to score them, and that way, you know, they're good for putting the piece together. Next, I'm going to use my utility knife for a couple of these pieces. First one is going to be this base. Now, the base, I am using some of that foam board and just cutting it out using this, and it actually came from Dollar Tree, this utility knife. My one from Cricut, I need a new blade. I've just used it so much, the blade is now, it was ripping my pieces apart, so I didn't want to use that. And I'm just going to go along, since this had so many details, I'm just going to use the utility knife to cut this one, and then scored it, got all the rest of my pieces cut. So we're going to start assembly now. So I'm going to put all my little tabs in and get those all folded over and ready to go. And I'm going to start with the house itself. And so we're going to get that tab, and I'm just using, you know, regular old craft glue that I've got in this little tiny bottle. The bottle somebody had asked me about once before, came in a pack from Temu, and they have the little tiny delivery system on them, and I love for using this for paper crafts. Now, my roof did not align well, so I wanted to show you this so that if you make this pattern, you'll know that you need to adjust the roof. So I measured it against where the roof actually fell, and then rescored the cardboard. And then I'm going to glue all along the edges as well as those little tabs to get this piece to sit down in where it belongs on the roof. I've seen such amazing villages that are done in these little cardboard pieces. So, you know, if you want to make a whole village, you certainly could do that. And there are several websites online that actually do give patterns for whole villages. So I think that would be fun. I put on my chimney, and now we're going to put on the last piece, which is the awning, and I just stuck it on over the door. The directions, or the pattern did not come with directions, although it seems pretty straightforward and simple. So I'm going to use this batting as my little snow. I'm going to glue this onto the foam board base that I'm using. Now, if you wanted your village to have bigger bases, you most certainly could make a little box to be a base, or, you know, glue a couple of foam board pieces together so it's a little bit thicker. But, you know, I thought this was just perfect. And if you do use foam board, in hindsight, I would have glued down the snow on the inside as well, because when I glue my house down to the snow, there's nothing really sticking to except the snow. It didn't glue all the way down onto the foam board, so it isn't especially sturdy, I guess is what I'm trying to tell you. All right, now we're going to go through, and I painted the entire thing. I gave it 2 coats of plaster colored paint, and that's a Waverly color. And now I'm coming in with a little bit of tissue paper, and we're going to use those as window coverings. You could also use vellum, or, you know, even plastic pieces that you pull off of stuff. You know, you could repurpose that and make that the window. So I just cut it a little bit bigger than the windows and glued around it so that it would stay down. And I think this little tissue paper worked perfectly. Now you notice there's that little hole in the back side, and if you get a real putz village house, then they're all going to have that hole, because that's where you put the lights through. All right, I am taking this glitter paint that I bought at the Dollar Tree along with some glitter. Now, I did not intend for this to be pink and white. I was going to actually make it silver and white, but when the white glitter had pink in it, I decided, well, the regular putz houses that I'd seen were very, very colorful. You know, I kind of wanted that white look because that goes with my decor, but you go with what you got, right? So in order to bring my decor together, I'm also going to use that pink glitter in my next DIY as well. So we're just going to use that sparkle paint as kind of the glue, and we're going to glitter that all around and getting every bit of it glittered. Now, glitter is not my favorite, but once I got that down, it wasn't really shedding. And then I am using just some white. It's actual white hot glue, so it came in a white stick, and using that to paint some faux snow on the roof and on the chimney. If you don't have that, of course, you could use puff paint, or, you know, just glue it on and add some different glitter. And then I'm just going to finish it off with a few of these little bottle brush trees and grab another fairy light. And I'm not going to unwrap these. I'm just going to stick that whole thing right there through the hole. And look at that. Isn't that so sweet? I love this so much. And I could see doing a whole village, and they have, you know, fancy pants ones that look really like German kind of houses, you know, that whole decor style. But I do love this, and I will probably add it to my little Christmas village. And then I just stuck the end of that fairy light on the back side of the house. All right, project number 5. This is our last project, and I think this snowman turned out so stinking cute. So I'm just going to use one of the salt and pepper shakers that you can buy at the Dollar Tree. And for the snowman's head, we are going to use a ping pong ball that you can also find at the Dollar Tree. Now I'm using my Cricut weeding tool to hold this ball in place so that I can paint it, and I'm just using white chalk paint. And then I'm using that same glitter paint and the same pink glitter, which, by the way, I saved everything. That's why I'm using the plate, so that I can put what falls off back into the glitter container. And once I got the hat all glittered up, I'm going to grab a little bit of this antique gold rub and buff and a little bit of this pink paint, and I'm going to kind of mix them together. Since that glitter is kind of a rose goldy kind of color, I wanted these little jewels, I guess, that you can buy at Dollar Tree. They come in this like ribbon, and I wanted them to be that color. And then here's also a little sticker ribbon that I bought at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to paint it with that same pink and kind of rub it off, and then add a little bit of that antique gold to it as well to give it that same appearance. And then we're going to use these as trims on our little snowman to kind of bring his little pink hat all the way down his body. And I'm honestly more of a traditional color kind of Christmas. And if we're not going to go traditional, I pretty much go neutral. But honestly, I have to say, I love the way this pink snowman worked out. And I might have to just add him to my collection anyway. So you can do any color of snowman you want. Sorry, you guys are getting a nice view of my hair here. But when I'm working on tiny little things, it's hard not to get up underneath my camera. Once I got the one layer, or the, you know, one round all the way around, then we're going to go with a second round all the way around. And then I was going to put ribbon directly on that little screw top, but, you know, it wanted to go into the little grooves. And so I thought, well, how can I cover up all the little grooves? So I grabbed a little pipe cleaner, and we're going to glue that down so we fill in all those little grooves, so we have a flat place to put our ribbon. And then, you know, I brought it all the way down to the neck. Then we're going to use that ribbon as kind of like a little necklace kind of thing, you know, some extra decor. And then I've got these little jewels, and they are from when I made that terracotta pot angel, which I'll have that linked below. It's sitting on the top of my little tree I have in my craft room. These are the jewels I used on it. And so we're just going to keep adding. And in this case, you know, I felt like more was more. And so I just kept on until I decided that I was done adding things on. In hindsight, I probably would have stuck that jewel in the middle of the ribbon and not at the bottom of the ribbon underneath, you know, onto the glue. Then I'm going to grab some of this Modelite clay. Of course, you know, I love to use this to make my snowman noses. So I'm going to make him a little nose. And then I'm going to paint that pumpkin colored paint. That's that Waverly color pumpkin, and get it all carrot looking color. Get that dried off and glue that onto his little ping pong ball face. Then we're going to grab a paint marker and draw on some little snowman eyes, giving him some character and helping him just come to life. And once we get that done, then we'll go ahead and get him glued right onto the top of the salt shaker and glue his hat onto the top of his head. But you know what? I felt like his hat just wasn't, it looked more like a, what is those, a pill bottle hat? Is that what they're called? You know, from the 60s, 50s, 60s, Jackie Onassis used to wear them. Anyway, I thought it looked too much like that. So we're going to add in some of these little jewels and, you know, just make his hat look a little fancy. Maybe it's a her. She's in pink. I don't know. Doesn't matter, does it? It's a snowman, snow person, snow. I'm not going to, yeah. Anyway, all right. So we're going to put those jewels onto the top of the hat, get him glued down. And then I'm going to grab some of this little white pick. I'm not certain where it came from, but I felt like we just needed a little bit more flair on that hat, you know, something to make it stand out. Now it's kind of looking like a flapper hat, you know, from the 20s. Anyway, one couple more pieces and we're going to be done. So we're going to bring some silver into it since we've got some silver on his jewels, and add on a silver pipe cleaner. And then we have this little silver pick. I don't know what it's supposed to be like, you know, maybe tree branches, something in silver. So we're going to use a little bit of that and add that into the hat decor, and that will be the end of this project. I'm telling you, more was more, and forgot. We got to put some cheeks on this baby. So I'm going to use my eyeshadow palette and get some cheeks rubbed on, and look at that. Isn't the snow baby so stinking cute? I can't stand it how cute she is. He is. It is. Love it. I am loving it. And here's our final look at all of today's projects. I had so much fun. I don't normally do like vintage, and we're going to call it timeless Christmas. It's not normally what I've done the past couple of years, and so this was a lot of fun to be able to do something a little bit out of my comfort zone a little bit, and stretch my imagination. But I am in love with these projects now. You guys need to let me know down in the comments below which ones are your favorites, which ones you would like to try to recreate. And if you do recreate them, you can leave them on the community tab. You can put photos out there and then share them with everybody, or you can email them to me at happytuesdaydiy@gmail.com. Thanks again to the sponsors of today's playlist, Brenda and Jackie. Give those ladies some love. I had so much fun today, and I hope you did too. Now, since you stuck around until the very end, I have a hint on one of next week's projects. You're going to need the inside of an old roll of ribbon. You're going to need a styrofoam ball, a couple of little wooden circles to go on top, and some air dry clay. But until then, make it a great day, and Happy Tuesday!